honored our invitation. A warm welcome to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with the Honorable Kateshimba, as you seated close to me here, but you have an important role because you are a member of parliament, and one of the cardinal roles actually is to appropriate funds for government to spend. When you have a budget framework paper and eventually you go and discuss in parliament and pass a budget, I mean, is it really at the end of the day that the government and the people spending the money are going to spend the money according to the appropriations you have made, or parliament is ticking a box and that is just a ritual? Then government and the executive will do as they wish anyway.
Thank you very much. First of all, budgeting is a process. It's not a one-day event or a one-week event or a one-month event. The Public Finance Management Act, Section 9, states that each accounting officer, in consultation with stakeholders, shall prepare a budget framework paper for each vote, taking into consideration balanced development, gender equity, and responsiveness. That is what we call the budget framework paper. And it's supposed to be prepared by 15th of November, and then it is expected to be laid before Parliament by 31st of December. This was complied with by government, and so we receive a budget framework paper. So it is prepared out of consultations, and it is expected to be consistent with the National Development Plan as well as the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. So when it is tabled before Parliament, then the Speaker has to refer the BFPs to the various sector committees of Parliament. So we have sector committees like agriculture, defense and internal affairs, infrastructure, etc. And these sector committees then sit down with the sectors and go through the BFP, the proposals, and look at the consultations that have been done, test the consistency with the development plan, in which case now we are talking about the fourth National Development Plan, which we adopted recently. Look at the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. And after they have done the interactions with the sector heads, the ministries or program heads, then they prepare a report, and then each sector committee is supposed to present before the Budget Committee of Parliament, our committee. And that's what has been going on this week. So we receive the report from the various chairpersons of the sector committees. We as the Budget Committee, we do not interact with the sectors. We interact with the chairpersons. And they will come and talk about the performance of the sector, issues of budget absorption, implementation, what you're talking about, how much have they done for the previous year, the targets for the following year, then the allocations, and then they make recommendations. In our case, the biggest standard expectation is that there is always huge unfunded priorities. Mm-hmm. Okay? From all of the sectors. Sometimes when you compare them, they are almost bigger than the budget. So when they finish, then the Budget Committee, after we have listened to all the sectors, chairpersons, then we have to compile a report, and we have to table it before the House by 1st of February. So next week we shall be on the floor of Parliament, tabling our report that amalgamates all the findings and recommendations from the various sectors. And then the House will debate and adopt the report. And it's from that report then that it goes to back to government to look at now detailed ministerial policy statements, which have to be prepared. And those ministerial policy statements now go into the details of activities and what will be done. And of course, they revise, look at the recommendations we have made in the BFPs, and then from there, again, they have to come back through the same process, through the budget committee, and it results into, finally, the annual budget.
So
it is a process.
I think you've given us a comprehensive understanding of how the budget starts and how it moves from level 1 to 2 and how it is passed. At this moment, I suppose you have an idea of what the priorities are likely to be for 2024, 2026.
Yes.
And maybe how big the budget is. Can you take us through, if you can, very briefly, the priorities and how big it is?
Of course, now the projection, the budget that has been tabled through the BFP, is it's a reduction from the previous, from the current financial year, which is ending, by about 20%. We are looking at about 57.4 trillion budget. And the focus of government is on the 18 programs under the National Development Plan 4.
Okay.
But the major priorities of the government is what they have called the ATMs: agro-industrialization, tourism,
and manufacturing,
mineral development, and then science and technology.
Oh, okay.
So these are the critical focus areas, but of course the more comprehensive priorities are under the 18 programs in the 4th National Development Plan, which you have just passed.
All right. Let me come. Thank you so much, Honorable Katishimba. Let me come to you, Mr. Bandit Chankara. Does that sort of send a warning or a red flag that the budget has reduced by 20%, and yet we expected the budget to grow from 70 trillion to
53.
To 57.
53, yeah.
57. What do you make of that?
Patrick, you see, I was on this show. I think if it was not this show, then there's some other platform. I did say that the rate at which government inflated that budget itself at the time when it was being passed, it was worrying. And I said that depicts how this government is run, without system, without strategic planning. And so for me, if I see the budget is being cut to 57, for me it's not surprising, because it means that they're trying to cut their coat according to their size. I said that we cannot run a 72 trillion economy. We don't have the capacity. We don't even have the systems to raise this revenue. And so for me it's not surprising, because when you look at, for example, our tax to GDP collection, we only collect 13%. Initially, government had projected that they would collect between, I think, 16 to 18%, and now they're actually collecting at 13%. And that tells you that as much as we want to grow, we must be cautious on how we grow. People, when you hear government officials speak about how the economy is running and all this, you may think it is actually a very smooth ride. And sometimes I heard the Minister for Finance say that this economy is now growing, which is okay, but this is like a cylindrical economy, okay? Why is it? It's actually a hollow cylindrical economy. Why? Because as much as we are trying to prioritize and look for these resources to meet this budget, from down is actually, again, it's a hole, yeah? So as much as we collect money, we lose the money. We collect money, we lose the money. And our priority targets are usually kind of misaligned. When you look at, for example, government is prioritizing tourism, okay, as one of our strategic investment. But let's look at behavior of government. Are we able to attract tourism? What is the level of investment in terms of positioning Uganda outside this country to attract tourism? And what is our internal behavior? Does it warrant tourists to come to this economy? So are we putting money, and then at the same time, our behavior is conflicting? Yeah. So then it depicts, when you look at it logically, you question yourself, what are these rationales? Does the behavior of government respond to the priority that we are making? And for me, that is where the concern is. So for me, to see government reduce the budget, it's trying to cut the court according to its size, like they always say. But again, this is more of a cylindrical economy where what we receive just get overlooked and we can't trace it.
Okay, so Lotus, I wonder what your take is on the priorities of government, because when they talk about the ATMs, agro-industry, tourism, mineral development, I mean, don't they have it right? Because looks like those are the low-hanging fruits, and if we put our money there, probably it could propel the economy to grow even much faster. That is where we could do best, and that is where government is focused on. Your take on that?
Thank you. I think based on the development and the fact that we are looking at implementing almost, I think there are 3 to 4 plans. One is the National Development Plan, then we have the Tenfold, and then the NRM Manifesto, making them to be implemented as per the financial year. And to me, I think it is not bad. They are good. But now we need to look at the specifics in terms of, apart from saying that in terms of agro-industrialization, you're going to look at value addition. Value addition on what? And at what extent? And for what market? Because at the end of the day, we do value addition, but we don't know even the market where we are going to take our goods and service, our goods in particular. Most of the time we are looking at market access, but we don't look at the market entry. And at the end of the day, you find that people are producing a lot of goods and products, but they don't have access to those markets. And to me, I think we need to look at the entire value chain of value addition. If you're talking about adding value to coffee, can we make sure that really we do add value to that particular commodity? If you're talking about adding value to pineapples, can you make sure that the value chain doesn't stop at saying that you're going to add value on that commodity, and make sure that from the garden we reach the market, or we reach the plate in one way or the other, or we reach the bottles which we have in terms of the juices and others. So to me, the strategies and the priorities are not bad, but the extent at which we have organized ourselves to ensure that all the value chain is complete is what we need to check on when it comes to agricultural value chain, but also even when it comes to, because we have under the strategy of the ATMs, we have mineral, adding value to mineral, to raw materials in terms of the minerals that we are extracting from Uganda in the context which they called beneficiation or mineral beneficiation. Do we really add value on the raw materials which we extract from Uganda? And that is the question which you have to add. I was interacting with one of the a person from URA, and I was asking that person, why have we seen raw materials crossing Uganda to other countries without value addition? And the explanation was that when it comes to raw materials across the ESC, they can go without what? Value addition and tax. So to me, I think we need to look at, if you're talking about value addition, we need to complete the chain of value addition to make sure that we benefit from the value addition, but also be strategic in terms of the markets we are targeting.
Let me come back to Honorable Kateshimba here, because you raised the issue of market and the market entry, and then we shall also look into the value addition and find out what you would have to say, because we have struggled to find our products get market in Kenya. For example, I've had the president literally beg the Kenyan government and the president to buy our milk. We've been literally begging the Kenyans and the Sudanese to buy our maize. We've been literally begging the Kenyans to buy our sugar. So really, and yet this is not some kind of a product where you have to do a lot of value addition. It's not that much. So where are the other markets? I've had many times people talk about the potential of the Algerian market with our milk, but I don't think there has ever been any pint of milk that has been sold in Algeria. So really, where exactly is that market? How can we trade with Africa when there are numerous logistical challenges of our goods to travel across Africa, let alone even Congo herself cannot trade with Congo in some parts?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. But, you know, the starting point, Kamara, is for any country, the starting point of your market is your domestic market. That is one that is assured. During COVID, you know, we had lockdowns, shipping containers were frozen. We survived here largely because we were able to produce a lot of things. So, as a country, our domestic market is the first assured market that we should be looking at. And what is the content of the domestic market? It is us, the Ugandans. Do we have the purchasing power to be able to consume what we produce? I'll come back to that. But it is us, the citizens, and it is our visitors who come to Uganda. So if you have, say, the 1.2 million tourists, I think currently 1.2 to 1.6, if you are able to double that number to 5 million tourists coming into the country, you have actually expanded the domestic market, because it means that if you have eggs being produced, if you have 5 million tourists sleeping in the hotels here in Uganda and lodges, you are guaranteed of selling minimum maybe 5 million eggs at the breakfast. Okay? That is one. Our citizens, if we are able to lift the per capita incomes of our people, and that's why when you see people belittling the efforts of PDM, I sometimes think that we do not get it, because if you are able to raise the purchasing power of a person in Chenjojo, to be able to say he has been having a cup of porridge for breakfast, and now he can afford to add an egg, then you are growing your domestic what? Market. So from the domestic market, then we look at the regional market. And regional market, continental market, and then global market. That's how we move. Now, agriculture is our biggest, agro-industrialization is part of the ATMs. We've been telling government, of course, if you look at the National Development Plan, the target is to have 2.4 trillion, and we've allocated 1.6. And this is what we are saying, that, you know, let us follow the development plan, look at the entire value chain, and grow our domestic market, then look at the regional market, and look at the continental market. Yes, there are issues of connectivity, but you remember when the government was trying to do roads in DRC, you've the stability in the region, South Sudan, and so all these ones are enablers of us to be able to secure our market in the region. Of course, talking about the other markets beyond, you are not going to export your cement from here to Brazil. You will never reach there and be competitive. So even though we are growing our manufacturing base, now we are exporting tiles, more than 300 containers to Kenya, to our neighbors, but you are not going to export those tiles to Spain, even if they tell you to bring them, because you will not be competitive, and the logistics, the supply chain constraints in the logistics value chain may not make you competitive. So we also have to look at the issue of what do we have to put on the table in terms of quality and you know, standards. So if we have a market in Nigeria, can our market be able to reach in Nigeria at a competitive price than the market across the Mediterranean to Algeria? How do we take it there? Now the issues of logistics and connectivity in the continent become, and that's why when you see the airline trying to open new routes, and I think this should be the discussion at the African Union. How do we open up Africa, be able to connect our countries. That's how we should expand our market.
Okay, let me come back to you, Mr. Bernard Chankara. He's talking about the domestic market first to focus on it. Well, that's good, but I'm wondering how a tomato grower in Shema is going to empower an onion grower in Kenya. But if there are maybe some tourists there, perhaps that's a good thing. But the money that can actually grow, the economy, I think the money is going to come in like a foreign exchange.
Yeah.
And the things that we produce here, their market should be in Africa. But because of the logistical challenges, probably will not get there. Let us even understand that some countries cannot even trade within its own country. A country like South Sudan or a country like Congo. Somebody in Bunia may not be able to access a market in Lubumbashi or in Katanga, and yet this is just one country.
Yeah.
And remember, the African heads of state, they met in Kigali and signed the Africa Free Trade Area something. But it's just in name. So what will grow this economy? What product are we going to add value for real? And then it can compete in shelves or supermarkets anywhere on the continent.
Kamara, we need to think, especially when you look at our service industry, okay? Let's look at the quality of our human resource, and do we have the human resource available, okay? And what quality of human resource are we producing, okay? Because for me, service industry is one area that is very critical, and of course government is not investing substantially for it to boost this economy. So broadly speaking, even if we first look at, we first leave service industry, let me first respond to the Honorable here in terms of broadening the domestic market. And he did provided the reference with the PDM, okay? It is good, okay? We're trying to put the money there. They call it monetization of the economy, which is good, okay? Put the money there. But the question is, do we have the human resource? Have we trained these people that we're giving money to? Have we set the environment in a way that can enable these local people prosper? I can tell you without fear of contradiction, this is just like any other, most of these community development initiatives that government has been put in place here. And it will not heal to the satisfactory level that actually government presumes. So I can tell you that domestic revenue, we will grow to a certain level. There will be some few examples here and there, but largely majority of that money is going to go to waste and will not improve the capacity of the people in a way that can generate revenue to this country. Now when you look at it at a continental level, okay, of course government of Uganda, we are signatory, we are part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but the logistical challenges like you mentioned, the tariff barriers that comes alongside it, it's enormous. Yeah, we have not been able to engage at a continental level that can allow goods move freely across the continent. I think about 2 years ago, I was in Ghana, and they are not milk consumers. You go to their supermarkets, you can't even see to find milk. It's just alarming. So at a continental level, there is still need for more engagement, and I think this engagement has not been done adequately. And even if it has been done, the extent of the implementation is actually not being effective enough. So I think there is still need a lot of work at international level and foreign policies so that we can address this cross-international trade barrier. But let alone the far African countries, let's come down to the regional market, the East African community. The president boasts of, I think, about 300 million population market. And when you come down to realistically and see how is government of Uganda, what is it that we are producing that we are able to sell flexibly, easily to Kenya? And by the way, Honorable, our trade, we are on trade deficit with Kenya. We are also on trade deficit with Tanzania. And that is a huge amount of money. So we are not trading enough even with the superpower
of the region.
With the region, we are not doing enough. And that is the question of the quality of the products we are producing.
Okay.
We're seeing value addition. The question is the quality of our product. We are not competitive.
Along this, there's the issue. I mean, there are three pillars of resource. Resource mobilization, revenue generation, and the people are going to appropriate, and utilization. How do you think can government increase on revenue generation?
Thank you, Kamara. But I wanted to add something. The reason as to why, for me, what I see, the reason as to why most of the African countries are not purchasing what we are producing as African countries, or like Ugandans, how can we make sure that Ugandan commodities really do appear in the markets of Nairobi, in the markets of Nigeria and other countries? What have we done in terms of, we have been trying to engage the Minister of Finance, the Trade, Minister of Trade, requesting them to make sure that we have our trade attaches within our embassies with the responsibility to trade our ideas, to trade our commodities in there. What have we given them in terms of trading Uganda? Even when you talk about items in terms of goods and services, but also even when it comes to tourism. I don't know if they are doing what they're supposed to do, because if we have beans here, I would love to see beans from Uganda being traded between Nairobi and being traded between Nigeria and others where there are no beans. So to me, I think the trade attaches should be given responsibilities if they are there and funded well to ensure that they trade Ugandan items within those countries before looking at organizing trade shows and others. So to me, I think we need to look at the strategies which we are supposed to put in place to ensure that our goods appear in those markets, because if we cannot do that, they cannot know what we are dealing in, what we have in plenty here. So we need to put task to our people who are representing us in those countries to make sure that our commodities do really appear in those markets. So to me, from that, I think we need to look at who is responsible. Is it the Foreign Affairs Ministry, which is supposed to make sure that those people who are there have the responsibility of selling Uganda beyond being there? So to me, I think we need to revisit that. When it comes to the aspect of revenue, the tax to GDP ratio, and we have seen it, we have targets for the government of Uganda is looking at 16% in terms of tax to GDP ratio. We have the tax to GDP ratio of 16 to 18 as per the DRMS, or the Domestic Revenue Mobilization Strategy, 2020 up to 2024, 2025. Then we have the 25% under the East African Community, which we need to achieve, but we have failed. And we had a plan that we are going to score at 0.5% every year, but we are scoring at 0.1, meaning that we have failed to reach at least a half of 0.2 and a half. The question is, what is the challenge when it comes to our domestic revenue mobilization? We have seen the strategies being highlighted that Uganda is going to make sure that we strengthen the tax administration, to see that we check on issues of tax evasion and avoidance, increased tax compliance, digitalizing the tax administration, and other strategies. But I think we have not taken the initiative of making sure that we look at where can we, which areas can generate more revenue for the country of Uganda.
Okay,
we have.
Let me come back to the Honorable here, because the first time I got to know him, I was actually a taxman, and perhaps he understands this much more. Just to increase the GDP ratio of the tax to the GDP ratio by just 1 percentage point itself is a Herculean task. You have to work so hard and some, or even appear, you know, some people would even hate you just to move 1 percentage point. How about reaching 16% from 13? What would be done?
You know, first of all, We are how many million people? About 46.
Yes.
The tax register has less than 5 million registered
Yeah.
taxpayers. And that includes anyone who has a teen who is a taxpayer. So for starters, I think we need to understand the nature of our economy. Many a times we debate from a point of bias or running away from the truth. We are not an economy that has externalized corporations. So think about, for example, South Africa. South Africa has got, it is earning from Uganda. They have companies here which remit money to their country. South Korea, just around here, all of you have got Samsung phones or what? The South Koreans are earning from Samsung, which has worldwide what? Business.
Yes.
So countries that have got, that have externalized, corporations and big corporations are able to bring in direct incomes into the country to contribute to the tax base. Now, you come to our indirect tax here. Indirect tax can only grow if there is increased consumption, right? And so, we as a country, are we able to increase our people's purchasing power? And that speaks directly to the per capita incomes. How many people in Chenjojo drink beer on a daily basis? Because if they drink beer, automatically excise duty, VAT is computed, is realized. So if there are 1,000, and through government programs and investments, we are able to monetize even those who are unable to drink the beer through the programs which many people think that we are wasting time, PDM and others. And they are able to drink, maybe 1,000 people are able to drink. That's how we are able to expand our indirect revenue. You can have roofings, 10 roofings, manufacturing iron sheets. Who is going to consume the iron sheets to build? It's the local person in Shema or in Chenjojo. Now, if you do not have those masses wake up, what the president called wake up, and they become productive, they get into the money economy. Leave alone the success rate of PDM. My colleague here says it will not be satisfactory. Some of us, we think even a performance of 20% success rate is a good start for our country. I have people in my constituency who will tell you, who have told me that I received 1 million, I bought manure, put in my banana plantation, I was harvesting 25 batches, now I harvest 80. If that person consistently goes on growing, they will be able to build a house, they will buy iron sheets from roofings, they will buy cement, and that's how the economy and taxation comes from increased economic activity.
But you have to.
There is no shortcut.
But you have to invest in those activities.
Exactly. So we should be looking at government investments in programs that promotes productivity within our population, that prepares people to, multiply and make money. And when they make money, our economy will grow. It's not going to be done there is no shortcut. So we should not expect that suddenly we are going to have to be earning revenue from worldwide sources, etc. Of course, the other issue which has been talked about, I was looking at one of the reports, I think the tax expenditure report of August 2024, where we have about revenue for Agon of about 2.9 trillion arising out of unrealized revenue due to exemptions. So have we grown to a stage where we can deal away with some of the exemptions so that we protect our domestic revenue? That's the discussion we should be looking at. And that is part of the issues we have asked the Ministry of Finance as they implement the DMRS, the Domestic Revenue Mobilization, to look at issues of exemptions and say we perhaps have outgrown some of the exemptions and we need to protect our revenue base.
All right. But I just want you now to take it to another level from a different perspective, because 2025 is going to be an election year. Yeah. And in most cases, of course, money is poured into the election, and before we know it, in 2026, as we start it, which is also going to be part of this budget, 2025-26, then always the election, inflation follows election. Yeah. What do you predict is likely to happen now? And I think this is going to be a very competitive kind of election. So,
but it's absolutely very true. I think I was having some conversation with some friend of mine in the US, and he did say that I think this is going to be the most monetized election. And true to it, the trend has been growing over time. That this government has made politics a serious business. And Ugandans have actually accepted and have admitted that politics is one way that you can actually become very rich and enrich yourself. And so the extent to which we take politics it's a serious business, and people or politicians are going to put in a lot of money. And even now, as we speak, people are now beginning to withhold money. And so we as much as Ministry of Finance is predicting a high growth rate in this financial year, I think it is not, because people are beginning to withhold money, strategically looking at the politics and how they should be able to maneuver through the political terrain. And so we are likely going to see an economy that is highly monetized, and then with that we're going to have our inflation level is likely going to rise, because the nature of our politics is not very good. And that speaks to, for me, that speaks to, if we are cautious and we are serious about economic growth and development, then we must be able to measure how much money we should always pour in the economy. And that includes even managing the political finances. We actually don't even have a law that regulates political financing in this country. And I think the Honorable might have to invite his colleague to have that kind of reflection, because you cannot have a progressive or a consistent growth in an economy where money is not controlled, okay? And sooner or later you realize that we will start grappling with those inflation challenges, and then the economy retards and growth retards. Yes, let me go to Aloysius. Aloysius, to grow the economy you need investments, investors to come and invest, local and foreign. But if we have these periodic episodes of violence every election cycle, are we likely to see people come and invest in this economy in 2025 and 2026, well knowing that what they saw in 2020 and 2016 indicate that there are episodes of violence, and those spikes of violence could actually ultimately scare away potential investors, and that's not good for the economy, isn't it?
Yeah, and I want to also first to add, which is going to be added on what I'm going to say, on what Honorable Kateshi was trying to say. We have been trying to indicate that we are losing a lot of revenue in terms of tax incentives and exemptions in Uganda, and we have been requesting the government of Uganda to use the cost-benefit analysis. And when you look at, for instance, what we have in terms of investment, we have criteria of giving out at least tax incentives and exemptions under the investment. If you go to the website of investment, you will see where they indicate at least 70% should be citizens of Uganda / East Africa. 70% should be raw materials sourced from Uganda, and then 70% should be on the wage bill. So to me, I think if we can do a cost-benefit analysis, we will be in position to see value of the tax incentives and exemption we are giving out. Because at the end of the day, you see the government is trying to look at expanding the capital market, making sure that there is access to finance, but we don't have enough. And I don't know if we have taken the initiative of developing what most of the time we call the domestic direct investment. People from Uganda doing investment, and they are supported, given incentives to be able to do business. So you find that from that angle, maybe we just need to look at who are the people within Uganda that can do business and then be supported in terms of tax incentives and exemptions, but also even other incentives beyond tax incentives. But when I come to the aspect of politics, maybe we need to look into that and look at how we are handling our politics in Uganda and the impact of the environment of politics to investment, and see how can we make sure that I think Africa has become almost the same thing when it comes to uncertainty, when it comes to issues of politics and election period. So to me, I think the way it has been, it creates a bad picture for the country, and I think we need to reflect when it comes to the impact of what happens during the electoral period and the attraction of investment. Because when you look at the target, I think under the 10-fold, they are looking at increasing foreign direct investment. But will it happen when we have such period, such behaviors within Uganda? So to me, I think as we are looking at the time which is going to come of elections and politics, how have we secured the minds of the people who are coming to do investment? I've seen what President Museveni was trying to tell the people when he was participating in the exhibition in the UAE. Are they certain? Or we are going to create more trade-offs? Because at the end of the day, if you are uncertain of the environment where you're going to do business, you are going to give a lot of incentives of which you are going to lose out when it comes to development, because people are not certain of what is going to happen. So to me, I think we need to create an environment to create maturity when it comes to politics, but also make sure as we are doing attracting investors to come into the country, we do really make sure that what we are trading off doesn't cost the country.
All right. Mr. Aloysius Kitengo, Mr. Bernard Chankara, Honorable Kateshumba, gentlemen, we're going to take a break, and on the spot we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara, and my guests this evening are Honorable Dickson Kateshumba, Member of Parliament for Shema Municipality, Mr. Aloysius Kitengo, who's an economist, and Mr. Bernard Chankara, Public Policy and Governance Scholar at Kyambogo University. Before we took a break, those two gentlemen were, he looked into the issue of incentives and how they could help, and he wanted to respond to Mr. Aloysius Kitengo.
Well, I just wanted to talk about the issue of our country as an investment destination.
Yes.
If you look at how we have been performing, we have been growing at we grow at 6.1% GDP. You can compare with other countries on the continent, but in terms of GDP growth, we are up there. Look at the other indicators. Our annual headline inflation has been around 3.2%. Very few countries have actually been able to achieve that.
But you can have the figures that indicating a higher GDP growth when Ugandans are hurting.
Yeah. The problem is that sometimes Ugandans have not visited elsewhere. There are countries where I have been, and you look at the issue of inflation, exchange rate, we have had the most stable currency on the continent. The depreciation 0.6%. Compare with our neighbors, just across the border 15%. So what we should be looking at, for me, this country is the best country to invest in. We should be looking at the other factors. Number one, and the president has talked about it severally, how do we reduce the cost of power? to be able to attract more industries and be able to produce products at very competitive rates. Number two, the logistical costs, the issue of transportation. We are, of course, running behind time on the railway. And it's very, very critical now that government is going to, is planning to invest. And of course, the fact of access to finance. Otherwise, I do not think that this is a highly unstable country that people would be fearing to invest in. Rather, if you compare with our peers in the region, it is a very stable place for you to make a return on investment.
You're a politician. If somebody wants to put in money and big money long term,
yes,
in a country that has not had any smooth transition of power in politically, don't they think twice about bringing their money to Uganda? You don't know 5, 10 years from now how it's going to be. Even though you've had a run of 39 years, yes, but you have not had a peaceful transition. Doesn't that scare somebody to put in long term?
Mr. Kamara, we have just had elections in the US. Are you aware there are people who have said that I need to stay away for 4 years until this administration is out? So we should not judge countries based on transition. Yes, it is a wish, but it is not a factor in consideration of stability of countries. You look at our neighbors in this Great Lakes region, which is the most stable country. You can move from any border to another border in this country without being worried of being mugged. There's a country I will not now mention where even members of parliament went, even from the airport to the hotel. By the time they reached the hotel, they were being robbed. So sometimes we do not give credit to our country because perhaps we have not seen what has happened elsewhere. We have a very good climate. The challenge we have is that we are a very unproductive population. We have a big and productive population. And they must be told that no one is going to develop you. You have to wake up. If you have land, till it. If you have something to do, be productive. But if you have rains, they have come. You have fertile soil, it is there. And you don't want to work. And then you expect the country to grow. The growth of a country is a summation of all our efforts. Okay? If you are going to spend many hours on social media, abusing everyone left and right, and we do not produce on what we have been, in this great God-given country, there is no one who is going to come. Talk about foreign aid, there is no one who is going to develop Uganda other than ourselves.
Okay, Bernard, sometimes the figures of economic growth can look very glorious, you know, 6.1 or whatever, there's no country growing at our level, Honorable Kateshumba will tell you. But do you feel it? Do people feel it? Is it not possible that you can have 5 or 10 or 15 rich men and billionaires at that level and then you calculate it as growth for the entire country when that's not the case? It could be, it can also be deceptive, isn't it?
Kamara, I'll throw light between economic growth and economic development. But first, let me re-echo, or rather comment on what the Honorable has just said. Downplaying the significance of transition to investment, it's a huge risk. Okay, we have seen countries that have gone down the trail because they have not managed transition, and so transition is very important for economy like Uganda. If His Excellency the President is serious about taking this country to the next stage of growth, we talk of growth and transformation. If we talk of 6% growth, which has been probably consistent, then the question of transition cannot be watered down. And I think it is very critical, and that reflects on the behavior of a country, the behavior of our leaders, and how serious we are as a people of this country. Now, when you look at economic growth vis-a-vis economic development, those are two different things. And what we see in this country is that we have been seeing a consistent growth in terms of economic disparity between the rich and the poor. Ugandans who are poor, and majority of Ugandans who are poor, have remained very poor, Kamara. And the people who are rich are becoming extremely wealthy. And that should worry us. Why? Because the quality of our people. If we are serious about growth, the quality of our people must go up. The productive capacity should go up. The PDM, well, it's being put, but people don't have the skills, so majority are drinking. He prides himself in 20% success rate of money that we are putting in. A lot of Uganda's taxpayers' money being put in, and he is proud of a 20% investment. Yeah. Why can't we target 80% investment? What are the limiting factors that is making us, instead of achieving the 80% success rate within the PDM, why do we pride ourselves as a country that 20% is a modest achievement? And I think for me, I worry when a national leader speak on some of these issues with that level of simplicity, yet Ugandans outside there don't have money in their pocket. Completely. Now, we can again broaden the discussion and try to understand we are doing agro-industrializations. The president is moving around banging the drum for investors to come into the country. Have we had a conversation of minimum wage? Have we reflected on it? Because that is where we will empower the capacity of people. We have graduates in this country. Those that have been graduating from Makerere and elsewhere, or Chambogo, where I'm a scholar. Graduates, degree graduates, are earning 300,000 shillings, 250,000 shillings, and they're there. We have maids who are earning 50,000 shillings. In people's homes, you might even find in Honorable's home, when he's earning a lot of money, he's paying, he's made at 50,000 shillings per month. And we have these examples. So, if we're having a conversation of economic growth, and we're ignoring economic development, these are the critical issues that we must be paying attention to. And unfortunately and regrettably, this is widening. The president reluctantly, in many occasions, have said it, that we will employ the children of the rich. And you can hear the policy voices when the president speaks and where his mind is. And I can tell you, it is worrying. We should not pride ourselves that we are making progress. The progress we are making, it's commensurate. We have been in this country since 1962. And we actually, when you look at the regional growth or even internationally, we have grown very slowly. And that speaks to our leadership. Okay. The Asian tigers, for example, have grown enormously within the 60 years. So where are we when we pride ourselves with 20%?
Aloz, we have a huge debt burden. And I'm sure the budget that the framework paper is also looking at will be putting a chunk on that for debt servicing. Are we reached a level, in your view, where we should start getting worried about our huge debt?
Thank you, Kamara. Before, I wanted to add on two things which I found that they are critical. One on the inflation. Maybe I've got also the opportunity to at least visit some countries and at least down there, and I've got to see what's happening. But also when it comes to inflation, prior we have been saying that the inflation is high, but if it reduces, we'll be in position to see a reduction. And we have been asking, why is it that when the inflation reduces, there is no reduction in prices of some of the commodities? And you can concur with me. Go down there. You can buy a soap at almost the same thing when the prices have gone down, when the inflation has gone down. And when you look at even this budget framework paper, they are saying that even the external inflation has reduced. Yeah. So if the external inflation has reduced, okay, regardless of other factors that are influencing the percentage of the inflation, why is it that commodities have not reduced in terms of the prices? And then the issue I'm going to tell you is the market-led economy. But leaving that aside, I want to add on what my colleague was saying, that of the minimum wage and what we are saying. In the tenfold program, we see that there is a plan to increase the saving to almost 40% in the tenfold. And when we were proposing to the Minister of Finance, we told them, how can you have saving at that rate when a number of Ugandans are earning almost, we know they pay as you earn rate, starting from 335. There are a number of Ugandans who are earning that rate from 335 to 500. But when you look at the cost of living in Uganda, in terms of renting, in terms of transport, in terms of education and others, do you expect a Ugandan really to move out of poverty? Do you expect, if you were a salary earner in Uganda, and do you expect that Ugandan to be considered among those ones who are supposed to save? So to me, I think we have to look at a number of issues to make sure that we develop our country together. And when I go to the aspect of debt, we see it is growing actually. It is not reducing. Even though they are saying that they are going to reduce on domestic borrowing, but when you look at what is supposed to be borrowed in the financial year 2025-2026, it is increasing. And to me, I think, I was trying to engage my colleagues and saying that the IMF and World Bank saying that our debt is sustainable, but how can we measure debt sustainability? When you are reducing, because payment of debt takes the first call for revenue of our country. When you look at what is supposed to be taken first, and then what is left, if you look at our budget, the recurrent expenditure takes the big budget than the development expenditure. And
I thought debt servicing, actually.
And the debt servicing takes the first call. But when it comes to even recurrent versus development, the recurrent takes the big portion than the development expenditure. What do you expect? When you don't have money which you are going to use to pay, because you are spending more on recurrent expenditure than spending in development expenditure that can enable you to generate more revenue, pay the debt, and then meet the services you're supposed to provide. So to me, I think our debt is growing because we are not looking at how can we invest effectively in productive sectors that can contribute to revenue generation, but also supporting us to pay the debt.
Okay.
That's why our debt is increasing, but also even the burden of the debt is increasing among the Ugandans.
Okay. Let me have Honorable Kateshumba respond to the issue of debt. Does it concern you?
Of course it concerns us. Of course the debt to GDP ratio has been kept below the target of 50%. But if you look at the
region again,
of course in the region and on the continent, we are not doing badly. But you see, if you look at the domestic interest payment as a ratio of domestic revenue, we've not been able to meet our target, the benchmark of 12.5%. That ratio is very high at 25%. So meaning that out of the revenue we are getting, the big chunk is going to pay into payment of interest, as opposed to providing services to the people or to invest
in productive areas.
So when I talk about the optimism in the economy, it does not mean that we do not have problems. We have many problems, you know, but we have a reason to be optimistic. There are things like domestic areas which have been growing. I think now the Auditor General's report talked about 13 trillion. And if you look at the budget provision by government of 200 billion per year, it will take us 50 years to clear the domestic areas. So that could be one of the biggest sources of stress in the economy, where you say there is no money. So we've been telling government, look, you have to pay areas because people have supplied government, they have certificates, they have pledged their assets in the banks, they are under stress, and there is no money. Even other corporations, you know, it's interesting to see National Water threatening to cut off Marago Hospital because Marago is not paying bills, you know, and yet when National Water issues an invoice, URA wants the VAT. So We would like to see government do something about the issue of arrears. Of course, the fiscal deficit target, was 4.6%. The outturn has been at 4.7%. So we still have the fiscal deficit. When you talk about GDP growth, while the average is at 6%, you have to look at the sector growth. Who is contributing to the 6%? Is it services sector? Is it how is the services sector growing? Manufacturing, wholesale and retail. Yeah. And then you look at the sector where majority of Ugandans are. And therefore, how is that one growing?
Which is supposed to agriculture.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so then, if majority of Ugandans are in agriculture, what is the percentage of agriculture of the GDP?
Exactly. So that is the point I'm making, that you have to make deliberate efforts to target investments that will look at where majority of the Ugandans are. And that is why you see the target for agro-industrialization is very high, allocating 1.6 trillion. And tourism, of course, the allocation is far below the target in the NDP 4. So this is our concern, and this is why we tell government and the ministry, look, we want to see more investments. Okay. And we have also seen another trend which we need to have a conversation as government. Everybody is building. Ministry is building a headquarter, this one is doing this. And they are all at different stages, they are all stuck. So it is a sunk capital, it is not generating a return on investment, things are stuck, and they are all unfunded priorities.
All right.
And so we are saying it's a time for us to reset and say, let's look at the NDP 4, prioritize sectors that will promote growth, but also challenge Ugandans to be productive.
All right, listen, gentlemen, in the interest of time, I'm going to give each one of you a minute to do your concluding remarks. I'll begin with you, Mr. Chankara, then Aloysius.
Thank you, Patrick. Government priorities continues to be a major concern. And just like the Honorable alluded to, where are the people? And for me, investment, government priorities, every financial year should go to the people. And when you're investing to the people, be mindful the quality of our people. If you're pouring money to the economy and you think that you're increasing capacity of Ugandans, they are actually misusing the money. So you're actually giving them money for consumption and not money for investment.
Some people have called it per diem.
When I was in Kitgum, some place called Namokora, they told me it is personal drinking money, and then they have called that PDM, personal drinking money. That speaks to the voices, the mindset. What are we investing? The quality. When we take money to the people, what message are we giving them?
But it will be a good thing for President Yoweri Museveni as a presidential candidate. I can imagine moving forward. So, PDM could be the game changer.
So for me, Patrick, let's invest in the young people. Let's improve their capacity. Let's skill them. This is 21st century. And when you look at the international economy, the IT sector is actually growing at an extremely high rate. Okay. What are we doing?
All right.
What are we doing?
Thank you. Aloysius, your parting shot.
Thank you, Kamara. I wanted to add on what my colleagues were saying, that the sector which employs a number of Ugandans is contributing less. And sometimes as I ask myself, what do you expect from it to contribute in terms of, when you look at what we have at the ESC level, it is almost all the raw materials are going tax-free. 0% under the common external tariffs. What do you expect? And the level of finished goods, they are low. The level of exportation of our finished goods is totally low. What do you expect from it? when it comes to, in terms of tax you're supposed to get from agriculture. So to me, I think we just need to look at what are the causes of agriculture sector not contributing to what we expect from it. Is it because of our problems? Because we agreed, even when you look at what is being agreed at the EAC level, the common external tariffs, the tripartite, the SADC COMESA, and then at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we have agreed for almost total liberalization. As it is at the WTO level, what do you expect? So we need to go back and look at why is agriculture not contributing what we expect it to contribute, yet it has a number of people who are doing business in the sector. So to me, I think we have to make sure that we look at the sector and how we can help the sector contribute effectively to the tax to GDP, to the resource envelope of Uganda. And I liked what my colleague was talking about. I don't know, Mr. Katesh, you had what we call the Silicon Valley. And I think it is high time now to boost the Silicon Valley in terms of science and technology. Yes. Under that. Because when you look at what we have, we were crying that we don't need the OTT. And then they said, oh, good, let us just take out the OTT. Let us bring the internet data. 12% on each and every on each and every penny you are purchasing airtime. Do you think that the sector will grow as we want if you have a number of taxes on the sections and when the infrastructure is not clear? So to me, I think we need to improve on our internet infrastructure and technology infrastructure so that we can benefit, and it cuts across the youth, the old, and others who are enjoying, who are supposed to benefit from the sector and use the sector. So to me, I think we have a role to play to make sure that we benefit as a country in all we are strategizing to achieve.
Silicon Valley is in Namkekera. Honorable Kateshimba, what's going to be your concluding remark?
You know, for me, I'm a realist. I like these colleagues of mine because I noticed that maybe I need to give them a trip to Shema and take them around so that reality can hit home. Because when you talk about technology, we have had a program under the Ministry of ICT of extending internet all over the place. Things of Silicon Valley, let's not copy what, we must start from here. We have a very huge population that is not in the money economy. Until that population gets into the money economy, you can develop here, you can have your industries, you can have your internet. No one is going to have the capacity to consume what you have produced. So the bottom-up approach, yes, we can do the skilling, right? But we also need to work on the mindset. But we must start from down. If you have an unproductive population in a subsistence, largely subsistence economy, there is no way. The pyramid must always produce people going upwards. Yeah. So, for me, I also think that the issue of mindset, yes, it's not entirely the problem of government. It is a problem of us. You are a scholar. Your ability to influence even the people in your locality, those ones who are calling PDM as personal development, personal drinking money, you also have a responsibility. When I go to Shema, it's my responsibility to talk to the people and tell them this is what you can do. There is no little money. So we should work on our mindset and not think that it is government. The government is not going to get a vaccine to plant mindset in our people. The government can do what it can do, but us as leaders collectively, the scholars, the civil society who are educated, we must also keep talking to them.
All right. Honorable Dickson Kateshimba, Member of Parliament for Shema Municipality, I want to thank you so much. Mr. Aloysius Kitengo, our economist, thank you so much for your submission tonight. And Mr. Bernard Chankara, public policy and governance scholar at Chambogo University, I want to thank you. And most of all, you, the viewer, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Good night and God bless you.